Greetings and welcome to another edition of The Fan Perspective. I'm your host Nathan Nile, and Wildcard Sunday was an exciting one to watch. I went 1-3 with my predictions. However, let's be honest, I wasn't really taking it that seriously. And other than the Packers, I went with all upsets this weekend just because I wanted to see some shit happen. But it was actually boringly predictable. All the teams that I actually thought would won the games, even though I chose the other way. Anyways, let's look at the matchups. We had the Houston Texans at the Cincinnati Bengals playing in Houston against the Texans. And the Bengals, they put up a good fight. Their defense came to play. They did a great job. Their only touchdown of the game was was a pick six. And they made it a contest. They made it a fight. Unfortunately, Andy Dalton he did basically nothing in the game. This very young Bengals offense proved that they're still not ready for the big time yet. They were playing well. They'd done a great job at the end of the regular season, but against a very strong Houston Texans defense in the playoffs, not to mention the veteran walk of guys like Arian Foster just carrying the load. I mean, they really didn't stand a chance. Nobody is shocked. And now there are very few teams in the league that could really stack up to the Houston Texans. And now next week the Texans are going to New England to play one of the few teams that stands a pretty damn good chance against them. And then later that day, the Vikings were in Green Bay to play the Packers. And the Vikings barely fought their way into the playoffs to begin with. And we all knew that they didn't stand a chance in the first place. And that was before the news broke that Joe Webb would be the starting quarterback. I mean, honestly, I didn't even really bother watching that game because as soon as they announced that Joe Webb would be their guy, I knew it would be a huge blowout. And so now the Packers, they go on to play the San Francisco 49ers next week. And that's going to be a much better show. And then on Sunday, we had the Colts at the Ravens. And honestly, I picked the Colts to win just because I wanted to see shit happen. And I knew that if the Colts won, you'd have Luck versus Manning in week 2. But I knew that all along the Ravens had a better team. They had the better defense, which is honestly the main reason that they actually won, because for the first time this season, the Ravens defense actually looked like the Ravens defense. We had Ray Lewis and Terrell Suggs on the field for the first time together all season. Haloti Ngata in front of them, Ed Reed behind them. Ladarius Webb, they're still missing him, and they're going to miss him even more next week going up against the Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning. But Graham and Williams, they do a good enough job. They're not Webb, though. There's a reason he's their number one guy. But this is still the Ravens, and when you have your emotional leader, Ray Lewis, back for what could have easily been the final game of his career, it makes it, that gives them something to play for. And I understand that the Colts have their own emotions. They were only 2 wins last season, and now suddenly Luck comes in and he puts himself in the Offensive Rookie of the Year and possibly even MVP candidate, and helps lead them to the playoffs. And despite Chuck Pagano and what he went through and everything else, and then what happened with Bruce Arians that morning. And honestly, it's just, there's a lot of different things there are a lot of emotions going through them. Anything could have happened, but at the same time, Andrew Luck, he's a rookie. He's got at least another decade in this league. Chuck Pagano, thankfully, he survived, and he's got another few years to coach left. But Ray Lewis, he has already announced that he would retire, and the emotions were running extremely high in that game, playing in Baltimore in the playoffs, while the best linebacker that the game has ever known is about to retire. And you know what? It was just, they had more emotion there. I mean, it's just, thankfully Ray Lewis is gonna play one more game, because honestly, I was watching that game that morning and they were doing the announcements. I found myself crying a little bit because I love Ray Lewis. He's my favorite player ever behind Emmitt Smith. And You know, it's gonna be a sad day when I turn on the TV to watch a Ravens game and he's not even on the sideline. I mean, that's just gonna be horrible to see. But you know, all good things come to an end. I mean, he's played for 17 seasons. I mean, he was drafted when I was in like kindergarten. So I mean, he's given us a lot of great years. His legacy will always be remembered, and hopefully he has at least one more win to add to it. But he is playing the Broncos, so we'll see. Anyways, in the final game, we had the Seahawks versus the Redskins. I picked the Redskins to win. I fully expected the Seahawks to win. The Redskins, though, they almost made my dreams. They almost made it come true, though. They started out extremely strong. Their first 2 drives went for touchdowns. But then the Seahawks came back and won it 24-14, mostly due to an injury to RG3. I mean, he's been playing hurt for so long. He's been trying his best to fight through it. You have to respect that, but at the same time, he was not himself. It allowed Seattle's defense to play tougher and more aggressive. And then at the end of the game, when they pulled him out, if they hadn't pulled him out then, they still would have stood a chance to possibly coming back in it. He can make things happen. But without that, with him out of the game, you know, Cousins, he didn't stand a chance in the playoffs. I mean, his only win came against the Browns. And RG3, even when he was playing, you know, his knee, he was hobbled on that knee. It takes away that read option, you know, and it hinders the entire offense. And, you know, Russell Wilson, he played very well. He stayed very poised and composed. And my opinion of him has improved slightly. You know, he's got a great demeanor. But, you know, the fact that they won does not completely change my opinion of him. Yes, he's the only rookie left, but Seattle has the best team in football right now, and I would not be surprised at all to see them win the Super Bowl. I fully expect them to come out of the NFC representing them in the Super Bowl. And honestly, just all of Wilson's heroics would have meant nothing if the defense had continued allowing touchdowns. I mean, it starts with the defense. You know, the first quarter was horrible, but the next 3, you know, not a single point. You know, they allowed like 50 total yards in the second half. So that's just... So you've got to give credit where credit is due. Yes, Wilson played great, but Marshawn Lynch had 150 yards. So don't forget about that either. And like I said, the defense did not allow a single score in the last 3 quarters. So it was a team victory. Wilson did great. He did his job. He played very well. But it was the Seattle Seahawks team that won the game. All of them did their part, played well. And next week they go on to play the Atlanta Falcons in what should be an exciting matchup. Hopefully, as long as Atlanta doesn't pull in Atlanta and just not show up. Anyways, this has been the Fan Perspective. I'm your host, Nathan Lyle. Next weekend, on Saturday and Sunday, we've got the Divisional playoffs. And I will be doing my predictions day of, as always. And tomorrow, for the basketball fans, I've got another episode of NBA Weekly. And until then, you know, happy Monday. I hope you enjoy it.